Hey, my name is Scotty and Lewis. I'm the vocalist for Carnifex.
Beautiful. Scott, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. So, Carnifex return with your new album, Necromanteum, on October the 6th, mate. So, how you feeling about it?
I'm pretty stoked. I'm excited to get the full record out there. I know we got a couple singles out there, but I'm still a full record kind of guy. And so getting the record out to the fans is really what I look forward to the most.
Yeah, so, tell us a bit more about the album from a musical point of view and what you were going for with it.
Well, it's a bit different than the last one. You probably noticed. I think a big part of it is we got a new member, Neil, our new lead guitarist. So we wrote this album as a 5-piece compared to writing Graveside Confessions as a 4-piece. We were able to work with an outside studio. We worked with Jason Sukoff at Audio Hammer out in Florida. And then we also worked with an outside I guess composer is the word, for all the orchestral arrangements, which we had never done that before. And then lyrically, and kind of the themes of the music are pretty different. It's a much more outward looking record, kind of more universal themes, compared to the last album was very, very inward looking and kind of more of a self-assessment, where this one is kind of an assessment of the space that we all share.
So, you've released the singles, A Necromantium and Death's Forgotten Children so far. So, are they a good sonic representation of what to expect?
Yes and no. I think as I kind of said, I feel like the record is, each of the songs is best enjoyed in the context of the full album. Obviously those are great songs. I love those tracks. But there's also other great songs on the album that we haven't got to put out yet that I want fans to hear. But really, I guess we're still in that mindset of writing full albums, And so each song, when it's written in the context of it's going to be part of an album. And so some songs purposefully, by design, have different looks, so to speak. We focus on different things or kind of give it a different tone. And that's because we think of it in the context of a full album. So yeah, to me, those songs are best enjoyed within the sequence of the record. But yeah, I think of course they stand on their own as well.
And Death's Forgotten Children features Chelsea Grin's Tom Barber and is about a near-death experience for both of you guys. So, can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, that came about from Tom and I were doing a tour together last year in Europe, and they had just finished their record, the double record they did, and we were getting close to the end of writing for this record, and Tom was working on the Darko record, getting ready. I think he's actually recording that one right now. And so we were just talking about the music we were both working on, and I had brought up some of the themes that were on the song and shared my experience, kind of my near-death experience, and then he had one as well. And from there, we just thought, why don't we just do the song together? I liked what he was saying in the conversation, and we were really relating. And I had never co-written a song with anyone before. It's the first time. And so it just felt very natural and just came together naturally. I kind of feel like guest vocalists are really more about marketing lately and not so much about artistic intention. And so for this to come together very naturally and organic, just with Tom and I talking about themes and relating, it really made sense if we were going to have a guest vocalist, now was the time.
And you sort of touched on this a bit before, mate, but this album is more of a conceptually based record around certain sort of themes to do with death and nightmares. So can you go into that a bit deeper for us? Like I read a little bit of it about the one-way mirror, like to another dimension, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, well, it was just kind of interesting to me that there was a point in time in the not too distant past when we as a society viewed the supernatural as intellectualism. Uh, and I find that interesting because now I feel like supernatural is kind of thought of as like just something you sort of have a laugh at, not really very serious. And so I thought it was interesting that arc or that evolution of society when, just 100 years ago, people were thinking seances were very scientific, and there's a lot of talk about science right now. And I wonder where we'll be in 100 years, right? I wonder 100 years from now if we'll look back at what the science we're dealing with now and just kind of laugh and say, well, that's funny. Kind of how we do now, where if we look back 100 years, it's like if you're doing a seance or trying to reach the dead, you were like meeting with a doctor, which is very bizarre to think about. But that's kind of what was happening. So I kind of ran with that and took it much deeper as far as exploring those timeless questions of what comes next. And if you are able to communicate with people from the afterlife, what would they say? What would you ask them? How would you be able to relate to them? All those types of questions.
Did you do much research into it to get other people's points of views on that, or did you take it entirely from your own?
I watched lots of Ghost Adventures.
No,
You have that show down there?
I haven't heard of that.
Oh, okay. Well, so up here in the States, there's a really popular show called Ghost Adventures. And it's like a group of guys, like four dudes, and they go around the world to all these famously haunted locations. And they have all these like tests set up, and they try to be very scientific about it. And they try to communicate with all these ghosts in these very haunted locations. It's just a fun show, but it kind of opened the door on the what ifs. And sometimes they actually capture some stuff that is unexplainable, that you're just like, well, what is the answer for that? There's no answer for that. Like they have these things. Well, actually, there's a band named after it called the Spirit Box. So they have a thing called the Spirit Box that like it operates on these certain frequencies, and they'll be calling out names of like people that died in this building, and they'll actually get answers, and it'll actually be specific to their questions. And I don't know if maybe it's just TV, maybe the whole thing's fake, I don't know. But let's assume they're not making it up. I don't know what the explanation is for that. It's very bizarre. Anyway, so that kind of piqued my curiosity into the supernatural stuff. And then obviously I added to it and ran with it from there.
And there's so many rabbit holes you can go down with this. So you could be making albums about this forever.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely could, kind of. And that's what I mean by kind of more universal themes, like exploring those timeless questions. Really, that's kind of the whole foundation of religion, going back to, early man times, which is, what's out there, what's kind of in the great beyond. We still don't know all these centuries later.
And you also co-produced the album with your drummer, Sean Cameron. So what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of keeping that in-house?
Well, I think the advantage is that you shape the record the way you envision, and we definitely have worked with outside producers over the years. And I don't know, our experience hasn't been particularly phenomenal. We had some producers we worked with some producers on the early records. That was honestly a very poor experience. You actually come to find out that these people have their own lives. And if they come into the studio grumpy, not related to you, and you suggest something, they just don't want to do it because they're in a bad mood. And you're like, yeah, but like, this is our record though. Like we only get one every 2 years. They're just going to go do another record next month. Right. And so we kind of found ourselves more than once in this position where the record is not overly important to the producer because they just did one. They're probably mixing one right now while they're tracking yours. And then they have another one they got to go do in a couple weeks. And so you kind of feel like you're on this conveyor belt where they don't know the record you just did, so they don't really know how you're trying to maybe do it a little bit different. Or maybe the last record you did, you're like, well, this worked, but this didn't. So this is what we're trying to do on this one. They don't know about any of that stuff. And to be honest with you, I haven't worked with a producer yet that cares about any of that stuff. And so that's kind of why we stopped using outside producers, is because they kind of got their own thing going on, and we just never really felt like we worked with someone that kind of gave themselves over to the big picture. Where obviously, Sean and I, we've been there for all the records. So we kind of know what we tried already, what we haven't tried, what works, what doesn't work, et cetera. And so that's the plus. And I guess the downside of not using an outside producer is maybe you don't have that extra insight. But to be honest with you, I've never worked with a producer that I felt was particularly insightful. So I don't know what to make of that. Maybe we just didn't work with the right guys.
Very interesting. And we sort of touched on this before too, but you've got Neil Timon, I hope I pronounced that right. He's been introduced as a full-time member for the album. So tell us a bit more about him and what he brings to Carnifex.
He brings a lot of awesomeness to the band, actually that kind of works as a great next follow-up question to the producer question, because you're always, it is important to have like that outside ear, and I think Neil coming in fresh from the outside, right? This is his first Carnifex record. It was a great counterbalance to maybe whatever bad habits me and Sean might have had, And so he almost kind of played a producer role, not in that was his title, but it was another person that was sort of outside of our little sphere, that was giving us insight and input. And he was also writing amazing riffs and helping us, we were all working together collaboratively to arrange the songs. So it was kind of perfect in the sense that not only did we get a great writer, but he was completely fresh and gave us great insight as well.
Again, we touched on this briefly before, but I want to go a bit deeper into it. Like, as per the subject matter, atmospherics play a big part of Necromanteum. Like you mentioned before, the orchestral elements that came in and the fact that you haven't used them before. So how difficult is it for a band as heavy as you guys working with an orchestra to make atmospherics over a record?
Well, we had used orchestral arrangements before, but the caveat is they were always written by Sean, our drummer.
Right.
So, he's self-taught in that, he just figured out how to MIDI program orchestrations. Whereas working with Spencer, who was an actual composer, completely different approach to writing that stuff. And also it took the burden off of Sean to have to, write something else, like again, write another thing. Cause he writes a lot of guitar riffs already. And then obviously he's doing all the drums and he's also doing all our pre-production. So he's got a lot going on. So to then also say, yeah, and, program all the orchestration as well. It's kind of just like asking too much of one person, and I really wanted to just let him be more of a drummer, because on Graveside, that was a self-produced record. He tracked that entire album. He wrote, fair portion of that record musically, and then produced it as well. So it was like, it's just a lot for one person to do. And I think to be able to hand the orchestrations off to a composer not only gave us a better result, but it probably gave him a better experience through the record as well.
And I understand you guys are off on a bit of not a bit of but a big tour to promote the record once she comes out. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we're leaving October 11th, so just a couple days after the record comes out, for a US run with Signs of the Swarm, To the Grave, which is an Australian band, and then Last 10 Seconds of Life. We get back from that in November, and then we're in South America for 2 weeks doing a South American tour. And then we're in Europe, March, April, doing a European tour. And then we're back in the States, May, June, doing another US tour. And then Europe, August of 24.
God, you got a full schedule, brother.
Yeah, we're grinding, trying to make a living.
Now, before I let you go, I've started up 3 new heavy Spotify playlists to go with the artists that we speak to. So, using your songs, give us a song for a party, a playlist to get the party started, one for a playlist to save your marriage, and one for a playlist that could potentially end your marriage.
Oh my God. I don't even know if I know how to answer those. To get a party started. Okay, let me think here. To get a party started, you probably got to go with that band. Have you heard this band Chord Hell?
All right, they got to be your songs, bro.
Oh, my songs. Oh, okay.
Quite promoting your band as well.
All right, get a party started. I'm gonna go with All Roads Lead to Hell. I think that's an underrated song from us off of World War X.
Yep. And one
And
to
then
save the marriage.
one to save the marriage. Oh my God. Save the marriage. I don't even know. Maybe hang on. I don't know if I have any. I have no songs about the relationship working. I only have songs about it falling apart. Geez, I don't even know, man. That's a crazy one. Uh Maybe I'm trying to think here. Oh, maybe Countess of the Crescent Moon.
Nice. Okay, one that could potentially end the marriage.
Uh well, either Heartless or Lie to My Face.
I'll chuck them both in there for you. Beautiful. All right, Scott. Well, thanks very much for your time, mate. Been a pleasure as per usual. Necromanteum is out on October the 6th, and she's another pearl from Carnifex. So congratulations, bro, and good luck on that tour. Don't forget your vitamins, mate. You'll be away for a while.
Yeah, I got you. Thank you, man.